Hello, folks. This is Darian Gray with the 816 Fix. As promised, I'm here live tonight, Wednesday night. I had a long day at work. Today I got up and had to go into the office and thought that I was going to be able to get out of there by I thought I was going to be able to get out of there pretty early. Let's just leave it that way. And that didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. In fact, I ended up walking out of there with everybody else about 5 o'clock. So that kind of left me a little strapped for time. But I'm here. I'm here. So I'm going to try to get this show started. I kind of want to give just a little bit of my personal history. All right. I'll tell you a little bit about me. Again, my name is Darian Gray, and I was born right here in Kansas City, Missouri, hence the name, the 816 Fix. I was born again here in Kansas City, and I grew up in the inner city, Kansas City, 44th and Norton. Not exactly a good neighborhood, on the wrong side of the red line of Kansas City, wrong side of Troost. And I gotta say, it's not like my life was all that tough. I definitely grew up seeing things that a lot of people around me didn't see, but for the most part, with the family that I had around, my mother and uncles, things along those lines, for the most part, I was okay. Was able to stay fairly safe, Real quick. Tell you a little bit about my my household. So I grew up to a single mother, and she shared a house with her mother. For the first 18 years of my life, I lived in that house right there on 44th and Norton, with my mother, my grandmother, and extended family. I got 4 uncles and 1 aunt. And across the years, across those 18 years that I lived in that house, on average, for a year or so at a time, all of my uncles and aunts always came back. They always came back for one reason or another. I couldn't tell you exactly why. I was a kid and enjoyed having them there, but they all came back. I went to Meservey Elementary School. Looking back at it today, it was a good school for what it was worth. I went there back in the 80s, and they were still swatting us in school. So back then I wasn't getting in that much trouble, but I won't sit here and lie and pretend like I didn't have to take a trip to the principal's office. Definitely got my share of the paddle. I went to Bingham Middle, and got a dose of a different world. By that time, it was late 80s, early 90s, and the gang culture, the dope selling culture in Kansas City had gotten very, very big, very serious. Okay? So at that school, at Bingham Middle, at that time, the school that I should have gone to was Central Middle, but there was some kind of a program that I can't think of what it is right now, but they stopped sending the inner city kids, or all of the inner city kids, to the inner city schools, or at least the ones closest to their neighborhoods. So the outcome of that was I got sent to Bingham Middle. I lived on 44th and Norton, again on the wrong side, or the east side of the red line, and Bingham Middle was further south, around 75th, on the west side of the red line. Now, the red line that I'm talking about is Troost. Anybody who lives in Kansas City knows that on the east side of Troost, that's pretty much the black side. I even hate to think of it that way, but that's pretty much what it is. And then on the west side is when things start to look a little different. Things have changed today. The east side of Troost is still pretty much redlined, but you can go on the east side of Troost now and find several pockets where you wouldn't know that it was a part of the east side. You wouldn't know. Things are looking much better. Even as you go up and down the Troost corridor, there's a lot more businesses, a lot more very nice looking homes, different types of neighborhoods. You can see quite a bit now that things have changed, and it seems like the process that they went through to get black folks on the east side of the red line, it seems like now, and I can't think of the word, but it seems like now they're changing things up, and they want a different crowd in the inner city, and they're starting to push black people back out. I won't say back out, but they're starting to push black people out towards the south, much further east, other parts of town. Anyways, a little bit off the subject. I'm gonna keep checking this paper, y'all, because I got a lot to say, and I don't want to get too far off course. I can be quite the motor mouth, and I want to make sure that I'm at least, keeping it where it needs to be. So forgive me. Okay, that's where I was. So, grandma's house and extended family. So, on average, I would say definitely from about 85 on up to 95. At any given time, I come home from school and there was going to be some kind of a card party going on at the house. Grandma had a group of friends. She had a group of friends, a pretty large group of friends, could be anywhere from 10 to 15 women. And I get home from school and you open the door, the house is extremely hot because they got the chicken frying and they got all the cooking going, and you got too many people in one space. Like I said, 10 to 15 women, and you hear loud talking, cussing, laughing, music. They in there partying. Grandma and her ladies are in there partying. And what they would do is play pity pat. At least I think that was the game they was playing, was pity pat. And they would play for low sums of money, pennies practically. But that was their way of getting together, maintaining their friendships and having fun. Almost like a club. Generally speaking, I kind of liked it when those days took place because I was able to go in, get some good food. Not like they didn't cook anyways, but they didn't cook the best all the time. But you knew when the party was going on, you was gonna get the good stuff. Steal a pop or two, run back outside and run with the boys. And that's pretty much, my middle school, elementary school and middle school time around the house. At least around the house. In the early 90s, I started going to Van Horn High School. Went to Van Horn High School. And that school, I thought it was pretty cool, for the most part. I was one of those kids in school who I hated the work, right? Like I hated doing homework. In fact, on average, I wasn't going to do homework. But I always aced everything in the classroom. Aced all of the classroom work, aced the tests, just didn't do the homework. And the outcome, of course, of not doing homework was bad grades. By the time I made it to my senior year, I realized that time had pretty much ran out and I didn't have the credits that I needed to graduate. So I had a decision to make. It was either you get back in there for another year and graduate, or you drop out. So I kind of made the decision to go ahead and drop out. Broke my mother's heart with that, I'm sure. But I made that particular decision, decided to drop out of school. I didn't want to do it anymore. So the outcome was go get a job, try that. So I'm in the workforce, and actually, that wasn't my first job when I dropped out of school. I actually worked my first job with Worlds of Fun. Worked in the food services one season, and then worked in selling their merchandise in another season. Got through that, and by the time I'm 18, I decided to join the military. So I did that. I joined the Army, and I was in boot camp for about 4 months. Now, generally speaking, boot camp is only supposed to last for 2 months. Army boot camp is only supposed to last for 2 months. But going in there, although I might have been athletic on the streets, I ripped and ran and with the boys, on the block, rode bikes, played basketball, football, all the outdoor stuff. I had never done an organized sport. And so when you take that guy who, is 18 years old, chubby, I go to Army boot camp, and mentally I was tough enough, but physically I just wasn't making it. And I tried and tried, but 2 months just wasn't enough to condition me for that 2 mile run. So I did the best I could. Didn't get through the 2 mile run fast enough. Actually came up about 10 seconds short. And a couple days later, the drill sergeant came to me and let me know, similar to high school, either you can go back through another 2 months of boot camp, or we're going to have to let you go. And we gave you 2 months to get it, and then we gave you another 2 months to get it, and you just didn't make it. So, of course, being beaten up and not used to that lifestyle after 4 months, I said, you can send me home. So I went on and left. I got back home, stayed there for about another, 6-7 months, and a Navy recruiter got a hold of me. He told me his story, wanted me to join up the Navy. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So, second shot at the military. So I joined the Navy. Got in there and realized that, this is a whole lot easier physically than the Army boot camp. Easier, not like they wasn't wearing us out physically. Like they still ran us to death, and we actually had to swim and a whole list of other things that we had to do in the Navy. But the Navy was more about the mind than it was about the physicality. So the testing was easier. Instead of having to run 2 miles, they only made you run 1.5 miles. And by that time, I was very conditioned for it, ready to go. You had to do about the same amount of push-ups and sit-ups, but the testing wasn't that hard. Got through Navy boot camp and made it all the way to the Navy A school, which is basically your job training. So I got there. Seemed like I was having some fun, but ran into an old issue. I'm not doing homework. I didn't do homework in pretty much from elementary school, middle school. I didn't do homework in high school. Same issue. Get in A school, I had no issue with what they wanted to teach us in the classroom, which, me being a fairly smart guy, I took more of a desk job, which would have been a dispersing clerk, a DK is what they call it in the Navy. A person who sits back and handles the money. So I'm going through the training, and I realized they want us to do this homework. So I would do as much as I could in the classroom, even the homework. I did as much as I could. I get through the testing, and I realized that, you know what? This might not be for me. Out of all of the yelling, screaming, in my face, disrespect, physical training. After all of that I went through, I had no problem going through more of that. But the homework, I absolutely was not going to do that homework. So, in turn, I end up cooking up a way to get out of the Navy. Now, I'm not going to tell what I did to get out of the Navy. All right. If you know me, you might have heard the story already, but I'm not telling. Bottom line is I understood what I needed to do to get out. So I did. And at the time, I had a girlfriend, a Mexican girlfriend, who I was all in love with and worried about. So I wanted to get back home to her. That was even more of the reason, aside of the fact that I'm not going to do this homework. That was even more the reason for me to get out. So I cooked up my little story, played it out, got on out. It was time to go home. So that's my two branches of the military, or at least attempted two branches of the military story. I'm out of it. I'm glad actually that I got out of it, because I've got my own list of beliefs about why certain folks probably shouldn't join the military, but I won't go too far into that right now. Maybe one day on another video. All right, give me a second here. Let me find my place. All right, so I'll tell you a little bit about my work history. So for the most part, of course, at a young age, teenager on up to about 25, I think it was, I kind of bounced around from job to job. You know, I talked about the World's a Fun thing. I worked as a shoe salesman. At some point, though, I want to say I was about 19, 20 years old, I started working security. Spent a lot of time in security, primarily because security jobs are easy, right? I'm a relatively large guy, 6'1". Security jobs were easy. All I had to do is show up, dress right, walk around, and the job was mine, no problem. Security kind of led into other types of security. Like I did office building security. I did, let's see, I was security at an airport. It was like a private airport at one point. I was a bouncer at a few clubs. I worked security at about 3 of the strip clubs in Kansas City. A lot of bouncing around in security until one day, reading the Kansas City Star, I happened to come across a particular job offer working as a security guard at a mental health facility. I don't know if it's smart for me to say the name of this place, but at the time, it's not called this now, but at the time it was called the Western Missouri Mental Health Center. So I started working there in security. Pretty easy gig. You know, for the most part, on average, you didn't do much until, because it is a behavioral health center, of course, there were going to be situations where, you know, security, you know, and other help was needed to try to help get one of the patients under control. When I started that job, I believe that was the beginning of my journey as an adult. And I say that specifically because I was 25 years old and I was actually working a job where it was important to pay attention, not only to the patients, but also to the co-workers. So I continued in that job and eventually changed out of security and started working in transportation. And so I would be the person who, you know, showed up to put the patients in vans and drop them off to other facilities or whatever the case may be. I worked in the transportation department. At some point, though, I started cross-training to work as a mental health tech, which is, you know, kind of in the low end of the totem pole. I won't even say kind of. It's the low end of the totem pole in the mental health field. Generally speaking, in mental health, aside from having people who clean, people who drive, security guards, you have the techs. We all kind of fall in the same place. You had a few LPNs, a few phlebotomists that would come in. You had a ton of RNs or registered nurses, and then of course you had the upper management. So this is where I started really getting my feet wet as an adult and learning some of the tough lessons, some of the ones that were really gonna open my eyes to what this world really is all about. All right, I say what this world is really all about because mental health is serious, and even as a tech, a mental health tech at the low end of the totem pole, it was important to me to learn everything that they were teaching, which, as it is in just about everything that I do, I'm kind of a perfectionist, unless it involves homework. But it was really important to me to learn everything that they were teaching. So I did the best I could to pay attention and, get that training in. So here's what I started learning. All right. I learned people. I learned a lot about people and a lot about the way that the human brain, a lot about how to pay attention to patterns and understand understand kind of the predictability of people. Biggest lesson in my life, right? The biggest lesson in my life. So I worked there. I worked at the Western Missouri Mental Health Center for approximately 6 years. At some point, I started a second job, which I always had a second job at some point. But at some point, I started a second job working for a children's behavioral health center. I won't bother to say the name of that place. But I worked there for approximately 6 years as well. And at some point, I quit the job for the Western Missouri Mental Health Center and then started working for another hospital in behavioral health. Yet another one that I won't bother to mention the name of. But if you know me, you know where it is. So I'm working these jobs and I'm learning as much as I can. I'm able to learn so much from those experiences that first of all, I was able to find out as an adult what my personal crisis was, right? What my issue was. And then I was able to see as well what a lot of other people's issues were. It was the weirdest thing to me how you work in a mental health facility and they talk to you about, or they train us on appropriateness, right? They don't want us to, they teach us about age appropriateness. So you can't treat a 70-year-old like a 15-year-old. And then they teach us about certain subjects that you shouldn't speak on. The two major ones, right? Certain subjects that you shouldn't speak on, especially in a mental health facility, is going to be politics and religion. Every single time that we went into training, they told us directly, do not talk about politics, do not talk about religion, because these are some of the biggest triggers for some of our patients. Sure enough, regardless of that training, you get onto the unit, somebody flips out, and the first thing that some religious fanatic wants to say is, oh, that's a demon. That's a demon in him, or that's a demon in her. Or they want to sit around and have conversations. This is nurses and techs, sit around and have conversations amongst themselves, talking about what the president at the time was doing. Politics, everything that they trained us not to do, this is exactly what these people would do. And it was really interesting learning that the people who work there are not so different from the patients who had to come in. Not so different. And honestly, in my opinion, in many cases, the biggest difference between the patients and the staff was about one paycheck, maybe two. A lot of these patients that came in, they were homeless. They didn't really, they were, to me, a lot of them were down on their luck. Definitely sick in ways, right? Some of them just were not that bad off. Now, I did see some pretty sick stuff, some pretty sick folks in there, and I won't bother to go off into the stories on that, but I definitely saw some stuff. Nonetheless, this is where I got my biggest experience in people. Learning and understanding people, right? And so, in listening to the patient stories and listening to even the staff stories, doing patient groups, right? Leading patient groups and actually able to sit and almost serve as a therapist. Now, I'm no therapist, okay? As I said, I did not graduate high school. And in fact, I was 21 when I decided to go back and get the GED, all right? Not a therapist at all. But I learned enough about people, patterns. I learned enough about a lot of the different subjects in the training that they would give us. And I'm one of these nerdy guys who I hear a word and I got to research it, or I learn about a subject and I got to research it, and I just learned. I learned a lot about it. So that's kind of why I'm here now. I'm here now because I want to talk to people. All right. And, just as a fair word of warning, no credentials, no nothing that says, oh, this guy should be talking to people. Nothing other than 42 years on this earth of experience. I got 42 years experience, and I think I'd be good for what it is I'm trying to do. All right. So I talked about finding that crisis. All right. Finding that crisis. Well, the true crisis that I was in at the time is I was slaving. I mean, busting my hump, working 2 jobs at a time, all the time, for pennies. I think my highest base rate was about $12 an hour. And so working 2 jobs at that rate, one paid a little bit higher. At best, I was making about $45,000 a year. Now, it's not like that's a bad wage, right? In fact, $45,000 a year is about the average wage for people in this country, especially for men in this country. But I had to work 16 hours a day to get it, 12 to 16 hours a day just to get that. And I knew it wasn't working. I had two daughters living with me, throughout the year. I had one other daughter, that I was paying child support for, and that $45,000 just wasn't cutting it. And so I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to dig myself out of this hole? What am I going to do for myself? And so the more I talked about it, the more I read about it, the more things started going in my favor. And eventually my work status changed. It went from working for somebody else to working for myself. So at this point, I'm a business owner. I own several different businesses in the personal care field. I provide jobs to just over 300 people in the city, and I do pretty well. But that's another video, right? Just giving you a bit more on my work history there. All right, bear with me, folks. Okay, so told you who I am and where I'm from. Gave you a little bit of the work history, and now I wanted to speak a little bit on the subject. The subject for tonight is there a such thing as too good? So yesterday I came out and did a did a post. It was a short post, about 9 minutes long. Just kind of describing a little bit about what I meant. So I'm gonna get a little bit deeper today. Is it possible, or is there such thing as being too good, right? And when I say that, what I mean is to another person. Is it possible to be too good to another person? It seems kind of, to me, growing up and all the way up until a few years ago, it really didn't seem like it was possible to be too good to another person. Now, maybe that was because I didn't have the mindset or the means to be too good to another person. But as time has gone on, I have learned. It's a tough lesson too. Really, really tough lesson. So to kind of get this message across, I want to give you all an example. So again, as I said, I'm a business owner. And the first people that I turned to were the folks that are closest, right? Or the people that were somewhat close to me, or the people that I wanted to be close to me. And so I started turning to relatives. And I won't use a name or a specific relationship, excuse me. But I'll say that she was a woman. So there's a particular woman that I hired. And she came in, before she came in, we had a conversation and kind of an interview, and I asked some basic questions. All right, where you work at now? How do you like that job? How much do you make? Okay, basic interview questions. We get through that, and we get down to the negotiation. Well, she told me at the time that I can't remember how much she said she was making, but whatever it was 2 jobs combined. She told me how much she was making on the 2 jobs. So I said, okay. So I did the math on that and said, fine, I'm willing to pay you what both of those jobs were paying you. So take your first job's hourly rate plus your second job's hourly rate, add those 2 together. I'm willing to pay it. Now, this is a relative. I want you all to keep that in mind. All right, this is a relative. So she comes in, she's making the money, more than I ever made. I'm paying her more than I had ever made on any job that I had ever worked. Okay, for what it's worth, I'll go ahead and say the pay rate was $19 an hour, and it's not like that's get rich money, but it was actually more than what she was making. It was approximately the same as what she was making on 2 jobs, working 60 to 70 hours a week, but instead now she's only gonna have to work the 40. Okay, so that was the first good thing that I did for her. Next, a few months goes by, and she learned she learned of how much the insurance, the health insurance was going to cost. And she came to me crying. Oh, I need your help. The insurance costs too much, and if I pay for the insurance, then that means I'm gonna have to get a second job. And I didn't quite understand it because I know she had insurance previously, but at this point she's working the 1 job and she's getting the same pay, right? 40 hours, she's getting the same pay. So I said, okay, you're this particular relative to me and I love you. So what is it that you need? How much more money do you need, to prevent you from having to work this second job? And so she told me, and it wasn't much, but it was another $200 a month. Now, I know some people who, even for me, I know that back before I got going in business, $200 meant something. It absolutely meant something. If I came up $200 short, I mean, hell, something might get cut off, phone bill or light bill, or I might come up short on that car payment or something. I was gonna have some kind of trouble. So I understood it. I never forgot where I came from. I still, to this day, remember where I came from. So I said, okay, I don't want to leave her in a bad way. Let me do something to help her out. So, in turn, what I did, let me move this. So what I did is I offered up to $200. I said, okay, if all you need is another $200 a month, I'll do it. I'll take care of that part of your insurance. That way you don't have to worry about getting a second job. I don't want you out here slaving like how I used to do, and even how she used to do, you know, just for an extra $200. So I took care of that for her. That was another thing, another good thing that I decided to do for her. As time goes on, she pretty much was able to work that job with limited and even some cases no oversight. But after a while, I started realizing that, I don't know, maybe she's wasting more time, you know, than she's actually spending. And what I mean is, it seemed like the job just really wasn't getting done. So I go to my supervisor and I told her, I said, hey, I need you to pay attention. Let's pull up a list and let's find out if she's actually doing her job. And come to find out, she really wasn't. Now, mind you, by this time, she'd been there for maybe, I don't know, it'd been at least a year. All right, she'd been there close to a year. And I realized, you know, at this time that she's not really doing her job. So instead of, you know, just going right at her and firing her or something like that, you know, of course, because this is a relative, I go and I talk to her. I say, hey, here's what I'm seeing. You know, here's what I've learned anyways. You haven't really been doing your job efficiently. I need you to step it up. You know, you got some primary tasks that you're supposed to be doing on a regular basis. I need you to go ahead and get that done. So she says, okay. We come back 2 months later, we find out she's still not doing that job. And so this time, because I know the conversation didn't work, of course, we got to go to the write-up. So I went ahead and did that. Had my supervisor to write her up. She was written up and she was pissed. She did not sign that write-up. She stormed out of that office and she ends up taking the next couple of days off. And this is all over just a write-up, you know, just a write-up. And for what it's worth, people, I want to say this, all right? I know that most of us have never been in management positions. Most of us may have never been in more than likely have never been in an ownership position. So I just want to say that generally speaking on a job, even though they might have a point system or a write-up system or something like that, but you need to understand that when you're written up, that's not something to take personal, okay? You don't take it personal. It's for the purpose of the purpose of the write-up is so that the company can protect itself. So that on that day that you decide to leave the job, you want to quit, and then you come back lying on the company saying that the company did something to you, so this is why you need unemployment pay, right? The company has its supporting documents that say no, this is what happened and this is why she ended up gone, right? So first write-up happens. She gets pissed. Just went through that. Then we go through another 2 months, same issue, another write-up. Okay. She's not doing the work, so she gets another write-up. This time she gets even more upset. Storms out the door. Same process. She takes a couple of days off. She comes back and she's pissed at the world. She can't talk to people, doesn't want to look at people. And she's planning her escape at this point. Okay. So I just want to kind of take us back across what happened. I still treated her like a relative. I still treated her very well. Okay. Never changed her pay rate, at least to go backwards. And in fact, in the time that she was there, she went from the $19 an hour up to $24 an hour. And this is in basically about a year's time. Okay. She went from the $19 an hour up to $24 an hour. And then once I raised her up to the $24 an hour, she actually complained when I told her, okay, now you're making $24 an hour. I'm not going to continue to pay this $200 towards your insurance. And she didn't even think about that. She's making another $200 an hour. That's basically, I mean, not $200 an hour, but another $4 an hour, right? $5 an hour. That's basically $10,000 a year. And if you did the math, it breaks down to an extra $800 a month. So she's now getting another $800 a month. And when I decide, okay, I'm not going to pay the extra $200, she gets pissed again, right? She comes outside, meets me outside one day, and she said, hey man, I just really don't understand why you would take away the $200. I said, well, what about the $800 that I added to, $800 a month that I added to your pay? What about that? And she chose to pretend and act like she just flat out didn't get it. And the truth is, she really didn't care. Okay? She's one of these women who really does not care about what anybody does for her. All she cares about is what she can get from you. That's it. And if it's starting to look like she's getting less from you, she'll up and leave. She'll take her winnings and get to stepping. All right. So all of this goes on, and eventually what she does is she quits the job. Okay. She quit the job, which is fine. I'm a business owner, and I've had people to quit before her. I've had to fire people before her. So that particular change didn't bother me so much. It is what it is. But by this point, I've done several different things in her favor to make sure that she was comfortable. All right. Even took her on a vacation with us. I occasionally do company vacations. Even took her on one of those vacations. Right. On top of all of the other benefits that she was getting. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. So a few months after she's gone, I learned that she's started working on, her and a couple of other people started working on creating a business just like the one that she was working for me. And fine, no problem. The interesting part about it is that they tried to hide this, wanted to hide this, put this behind my back. And so no sweat, right? Then on top of trying to create this business or creating this business, I learned that while she was there, she actually took my information. She actually stole from me. So here you're looking at a situation where you got a guy who really loves this person, who's done everything that he can to try to take care of this particular individual, right? To make sure that her lifestyle is good, that her lifestyle is comfortable. And then in the back end of it, she steals. Flat out stole. And has no remorse for it. And all of the proof is there. There's a certain group of systems that we have to use, that all of the companies in my field, all of us have to use these same systems. And we know where these clients are going. Then I start getting my clients and some of the workers coming, and they're telling us, oh, that person that used to work here, she's been calling me and she's trying to convince me to come over there. And I'm like, well, I'll be damned. I'll be damned. So she's calling you and she wants you to come and work there. Wow. After everything that's been done, right? After everything that's been done for this particular woman, this is what she does. And mind you, this is a relative. Okay? Somebody who's got no issue with taking food off of your table, right? With taking bricks out of the castle that you've built to try to put it on her own. A relative. So, is there a such thing as too good? Let's take that example, right? Take that example. Absolutely. In my opinion, it doesn't matter what the relationship is. Again, it could be lovers, it could be family, any positive relationship other than enemies. Any one of those relationships, you know, the minute that it becomes lopsided, it's lopsided because one person is too good to the other. That's what it boils down to. And that's the message I want to get across today. Pay attention to who it is you're with. Like I said, regardless of what type of relationship it is, pay attention to those people. All right? And think about what was discussed in the beginning. Think about what that person's responsibilities are or that person's duties are versus what your duties are. Pay attention to it. Make absolutely sure that whatever your duties are, that you're doing it. Make sure that you're doing your part, because when that person stops doing their part and the relationship becomes lopsided, you got to confront it. You got to confront it. And you don't want to be the pot calling the kettle black when you go to do that confrontation. You need to make sure that you've been practicing doing the right thing, right? Lopsided relationships are doomed, no matter what. Every single lopsided relationship is going to be doomed unless you got one individual in that group that just has no backbone. They got no way of standing up for themselves because they've never done it in life. They have no interest in learning how to do it. Just a weak, soft individual, which I know some, okay? Unless you got that kind of a person going, lopsided relationships are always going to come to an abrupt halt. And even if it takes a while, sometimes it takes years. My advice to you though, don't let it, the minute you notice it, the second that you notice it, you need to get out of that. Get out of it. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and her opinion was this. It was really simple. It's, well, you think that it's women, and I think that it's men, right? She believes that generally speaking, men are the ones who make the relationship lopsided, right? That's what she thinks. Now, that's fine that she's got that particular opinion, but here's my opinion, all right? I know that there's definitely some men who tend to be somewhat governed by their emotions, okay? I know that, but if I'm speaking in generalities, men are not governed by their emotions. Again, remember folks, I'm speaking in generalities. Women tend to be governed by their emotions, okay? And so, in my opinion, if generally speaking, the majority of people who are governed by their emotions are women, then chances are it's going to be those women who tend to make that relationship somewhat lopsided, because their thought processes, not all of them, again, speaking in generalities, but those thought processes tend to get a little wacky, you know? Now, I believe that when it comes to what women are supposed to do, for the most part, I think they want to do it, and I think that they even try. But the second that a woman's emotions get off track, that is, a man makes her mad, say one time too many, or makes her sad or cry one time too many, it's going down. Bottom line, is going down, and that's just my opinion. I'm not going to get too deep into, I'm not going to get too deep into men and women today, but that's my opinion. So, is there a such thing? Absolutely. Lopsided relationships where the scales get tipped, this way, that way, as opposed to things being even. Yeah, in my opinion, that's exactly what's going on. Is somebody is being too good. Now, I got other examples, but I don't want to stick on this thing too hard. I'm actually going to be able to take this video down the line and edit it and post it again. So for the couple of folks that might be watching this video tonight, I absolutely appreciate your support. I hope that you come back. Expect more, okay? Expect more, because I'm not going to give up on this thing. I like speaking. I like speaking to people. I like helping people. The subjects are going to get better, deeper. And hopefully the next time around, you'll have a few more folks there to support me along with you. All right. So all that being said, thanks for your support. Thanks for coming out and watching me tonight. I'm going to close this one off though. Thank you.